It's
Yeah,
racing.
let's start. Good to have you all and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think for some of us, it's also good evening. We have a really international crowd here today. At least I've seen Singapore, Australia, London, Amsterdam, Bangkok, Helsinki, Stockholm. Who else can comment on chats? But hey, thank you for joining us today. Great to see so many participants and enthusiastic about the topic. I really love it. My name is Samppa Velkuna, and I'm joining from here from our Helsinki hub, and I'm the founder of Superson. And I'm actually very humbled to host this session with true industry trailblazers. So we thought actually that although this is the very hectic time of the year, and everybody is trying to figure it out what's happening next year. So we are bringing both brand owner perspective and of course the creative side perspective from the real world, and let's see where we end up. It's a 55-minute session, and this will be a super interesting. That much I know about these guys that it will not be boring. So I promise that. There's a comment. You can comment on chat, so I will have a questions after the interviews. So we have two interviews today, and we'll have also some time for Q&A in the end. So that's it. I think we should start now with our managing partner from Singapore Hub, Antti Toivonen. So over to you guys.
Hey, hi. So it's Antti here, and I'm gonna be speaking with Luke. So maybe not many words about me, because I'm sure a lot of you have seen me around. Uh, but Luke here, say hello. I'll do a little intro. But this is Luke. So Luke is an agency CEO turned marketeer. So he's the CMO of Kingfisher and VP of marketing of Square Trade and Allstate in APAC. Uh, he looks after the whole of Asia Pacific for both of the brands, and he has most recently been part of Kingfisher's integration to Allstate. And what Kingfisher is, Kingfisher delivers innovative mobile products and services that drive circularity and enable carriers to have the best customer experience in the market. So most recently in the past years, Luke has been a B2B marketeer. And what makes him interesting in particular is his background in agencies, in cultural and experiential marketing. So very could say different in many ways in marketing, branding, digital, ATL, shopper marketing, you name it, for brands like Heineken, Johnny Walker. He's worked with big shops like Ogilvy, TBWA, as well as smaller ones. And apart from these agency and marketeer roles, he's worked in fractional roles and done consulting, held CMO positions, and so forth. So basically, Luke has seen marketing from all sides of the fence and has very unique insight into how the agency world or the marketing realm, the grander realm, operates and what brands actually need these days and moving forward as well. So you want to say anything, Luke?
Wow. Wow. I didn't know I did so much. I was listening to that going, God, I'm old. But thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I hope I can add some value to the conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. So maybe we just, without further ado, start with a bit of a look back. So theme today is obviously like unwrapping 2026 because Christmas is coming. But if you look back and not too far back, uh, I wanted to ask you like, what do you want to leave behind from 2025?
Yeah, thank you. Look, this is probably a negative way to start the chat because I don't want to leave any positive things behind, but there's a few things that I think is important to leave behind, and I think the first one, and again, I'm going to be talking about everything today, sort of my agency hat on and also my CMO hat on. But one of the key things I want to leave behind is the sea of sameness we're seeing in the work at the moment, and I think it is a really weird time. It is a really weird time. We're kind of, at the end of the performance-led world of marketing. we're at the beginning of this AI sort of revolution that's happening, and a lot of people are putting a lot of kind of effort into. And then we're in a like a really unstable financial time, putting my CMO and sort of had a CEO hat on. And what this has meant is there's just a glut of really sort of same work out there. And I think, the thing about AI, and I think about this time of the world is that it's kind of brings everything to the average. And it feels like this whole year has been about average work. And one of the really important things, and one of the things I just want to leave behind is average work. And it's exacerbated by sitting here in Singapore, I think, because a lot of the regional stuff, it can't be too daring, but it is time to leave that behind. I think the second area is just this whole chat about AI as the replacement for creativity. Like it's getting we came into the year really excited about it. I think everybody on this call has used it, and we know it's not a replacement for creativity. We know it's great and it has fantastic tools, and as an operating platform and operational support, it's amazing, but it's not going to replace creativity. So I really want to kind of put a line in the sand with that as well and think about AI as a tool to enhance creativity, not the object of creativity. I think that's really, really important. And I think the third one, and you want to be a little bit controversial, and it's something about the industry itself, and we're talking about the industry, is I think it's time to leave these pointless debates that seem to be happening in marketing today. Like every time you go, like I can't go to LinkedIn anymore. I can't go any of these channels. All we're talking about is AI going to take our jobs? AI versus creativity. This ridiculous conversation around B2B and do we need brand and B2B? Like, does B2B creative need to be not performance led? Of course it doesn't. Like, and we just need to stop doing that. Like, I think if the only people getting any value out of this are the people that aren't actually doing anything. They're the people that are using AI and Chat GPT to get online and have a half an opinion. So I think we should be focusing on the work. And that's kind of the key theme today of what we'll be chatting about. And how do we make the work better? How do we deliver stuff that play an active role in culture? And how can we make a difference? Because everything's going south.
Yeah,
Positive.
no, that's yeah, very good ramble to start with. And you just mentioned, of course, new emerging tech. You mentioned economy, and I guess one thing that we are seeing as well, there's just like tremendous change in this industry in general. But now you've been in this industry for 30 years, so before I was born. So
Yeah, I'm really
nice
old now.
try.
Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah. So have you seen anything like similar before?
Yeah, look, and I think this is I started off negative, but I think there's some really positive things to take out of this, and this cycle, I've seen this cycle happen many, many times. What happens is a new technology, a new medium, a new something comes in, and we get really, really excited about it. So AI. Then the highly creative people, those people that like in the fringes of culture, not just in the fringes of agencies, do amazing stuff with it, right? And we'll get really, really excited about it. And then in agencies, we try, and creative people, and we try to harness that. But what we often do is we use old thinking in the new tools. And it's not as good. And then what happens is we productize it and commoditize it, and then we try and sell it. And then we get to this thing which I said before, which is the sea of sameness. So, and I've seen that, a million times. When I started at Ogilvy. I couldn't believe it took a year to create big ideas. And a big idea then was a TVC for pot noodles. I'm not joking. I was like, I'm out. I don't want to do this. And then, I went to London and worked at TBWA, and then that's when advertising was like at the in culture, and I was like, this is cool. I want to do this thing, right? And I remember getting invited to BBH to when they were launching the Guinness Surfer ad. And it was like a movie launch because they had this soundtrack by Left Field. Everyone was there. I was like, advertising will never get any better. This is it. This is great. And then, a minute later, digital came in. And again, we saw these amazing things, and everyone was saying, that's it. We don't have to, be stuck with a 30-second spot. We don't have to, don't need to be a minute. We can now do film. We can be contextually where clients, everybody is with consumers. And what did we do? We sort of spent the next 5 years making thousands of banner ads out of print ads. And that cycle happens every time. I saw it at Iris. We did amazing stuff in PR and activation and experiential, and it got toolboxed into extinction. And then we went into performance, and so it all happens. But I think what is really exciting about this, and what happens is something really good always emerges from those fault lines. Like something really exciting comes out of that, and it kind of clears the path. And I think we're at that kind of reset moment now. And I think if we're talking about agencies and approaches, like now is the time for that to happen. The big agencies are really, really struggling.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. Yeah, that whole mention about yeah, that we are at the cusp of something that you've basically seen at least 3 times. This is like at least third rodeo in that sense. So it
At
comes
least three.
with
I reckon it's
certain
about
kind of like
five. Yeah.
insight. So then just this whole like agency landscape and this like brand landscape as well. So how do you feel that like brand and agency relationship has changed, and where can it potentially evolve now as well?
Yeah, look, that's since COVID particularly, yeah, it's changing, and it changes every time with as we said, with the new technology or the new thing that comes through. But I think we're seeing kind of incremental change, and I think it's nothing new, but then it's really new. I think the first area is around you know the agency client partnership is disappearing, like at how we traditionally know it. So, like, a great stat, and it's probably a question for Auntie. 10 years ago, how long was the average agency relationship, do you think? An agency and a client, what was that tenure?
Yeah, I'm just yeah, making up a number, but I think like probably like 10 years.
Ah, no. So that's 20 years ago, but it was about five and a
6 years.
half years. It's about five and
Yeah.
a 5.5 years. So you worked together for 5.5 years. Today, the
Yeah,
average
the only
agency.
reason I said that because we've been working together for like 6 years. I'm like, I can't say
Yeah, yeah, but
that.
people work together, not businesses. This is the thing, but that's a very good point. But yeah, today the average is 18 months. And I think if we're looking at the relationship, but also looking at, you've got to look at output. And long agency relationships mean a focus on big ideas and a focus on sustained brand, sustained focus on brand. And if you don't have that, that's not there anymore. And we know from the work done by the IPA that big, long ideas are more effective. So this change has meant that agencies have to be a lot smarter in what they do. And I think it's a key building block. I think it's a key thing people need to approach now is like we've only got a really short time. Therefore, as an agency, how do we make an impact? How do we make a commercial impact? How do we make a creative impact to that business? And I always say this when I'm chatting to agencies, like, don't worry about your first brief, worry about the second brief, because that's the hardest one to get, and that's the one where you're going to make the most impact.
The
So I
difficult
think that, I
second.
think, so no, that's right, Andy. I have given you more than two briefs, so you have worked there with me, but on that. But I think, another area which we all know about is this fragmentation piece. And I think there's a lot being said about it, but that's changing. It's changing even quicker because you used to have one brand, one person inside of the client, putting my CMO hat, driving the strategy for that business, driving what's happening moving forward. And you have the creative agency, and that an agency would take that idea and it'd be you extend it for the year, and then you take it into the channels. Now you're briefing. I know as a CMO, you might be briefing 7 or 8 agencies, and you don't want to be briefing 7 or 8 agencies. And that means there's 7 or 8 different contacts going out there and 7, 8 different sort of brand experiences happening and 7, 8 different touch points for consumers. And if that gets disjointed, everything you're doing is fails because you're only as weak as that weakest link. And I think that fragmentation is something that agencies need to address now, and a big hint as an agency person, as a client person, as a client, giving it to your agencies and saying you're the lead agency, sort it out, doesn't work. We're not going to work well together. We're saying we're going to work well together. We don't work well together. We're all trying to eat each other's breakfast. So, it's not a great way to move forward. So again, it's thinking about how do you really control the strategic narrative that is really important for agencies moving forward. And I think the third area here we can't blame clients for, which is, well, the agency relationship has really died. And that's, this is this conglomeration. It's the agencies eating the agencies, you know. All the great names are gone, JWT is gone, Y&R is gone, Gray is gone, Leo Bennett's Leo, DDB, the guys that created advertising is potentially gone. And if the holding companies don't believe in their brands, why are the clients going to believe in the brands we're trying to sell them? Like it's crazy. So I think that's really important. But again, I think this is a really exciting time to be there. And I've lived through this consolidation at Iris and other places, and it's not the agency purchase that destroys it. It's the integration that destroys it. It's the homogeneity. You squeeze out the culture, you squeeze out the creativity. But what this means is now that there's no value in these big agencies, it's time for small, interesting agencies that can add real value, can be more creative, that can focus on ideas, that can curate, that can do really interesting stuff. They're the guys that are going to survive. So I think it's a great reset and a really important time and a great time to be in the industry.
Yeah, that's true. It really feels like that there is, yeah, like this massive shift in general, and they are like, almost like these like different things coinciding. They are like not connected to each other. Say like rise of AI, and this what we see happening with the big agencies. I don't think it's connected. Both things could have happened like individually as well, and probably would have as well. And then of course you add to the mix the economy.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
interesting. But then,
Yeah. Agree.
do you want to say something there? Or?
No, 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 no. Agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. So, hey, yeah. Then just wanted to ask because now you've been sitting very steadily on the marketeer side, on the brand side. So, how does that side look right now, and then moving to 2026?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. You can see here I default back to my agency hat the whole time, where I should have my marketer's hat on, saying I've been doing this for 4 years. But look, I think I think I think the big difference between working kind of client side and agency side and marketing is when in your agency, we're really focused on like looking at the future and ensuring that we're creating a brand that's distinctive and differentiated and everybody loves, and we're creating assets and experiences that drive people in and get people to purchase things and do it again. I think when you see the CMO side, it's a bit different because you're really focused on customer experience, and the customer experience is not is every single thing that you do, and you quickly learn that like marketing is a very, very small thing of what we do. And particularly in these B2B businesses that I've been working on and consumer businesses, like you're one guy at the table and there's a lot of big things that are happening that is hard to kind of control. And so I think the key difference I've noticed between, as I said, a CMO is you're in charge of this consumer experience. And I think that's a real challenge. And I think that's where I see the sort of focus going for the marketing role is, at Kingfisher, we're trying to get telcos to move from a linear model of selling phones like they've done for 20 years to a circular model to do it totally different to save the environment and give better experiences to consumers. Like they don't want to do that unless they're not, they're making money and it actually works. So every point, everything that you need to do as a CMO, you need to ensure that that touch point is working and delivering on what your brand promise is. And that's a real challenge as a CMO, and I think it's going to get harder. And now that I also work in the consumer insurance world, the only time your consumers contact you in your insurance is when something goes wrong, and that's really tough. Like you can stuff it up really easy. So again, it's not just about advertising and marketing, it's making sure that every response, every touch point, you're empathetic, you bring solutions, just listening to them, and that's all connected up. And you need to make sure that they're having the same conversation with their on the chat as they're having with the agent, as they're having with the person that's solving their problem. And I think that's the role of the CMO now. And I think this is why AI is so good and exciting, is because AI can bring all of that together and ensure that the work that we are doing is 10% better than it could be. And it's the same in, creative services and agencies as well. We need to use AI to bring all the data to do all that process stuff, and it'll make a hell of a difference.
Yeah, no, that's actually something I wanted to ask about as well, was because say I come from like a very like a creative pedigree, and to me it's very clear what I want to use AI for and how we use it and all the sort of possibilities with it. But then on the CMO side, it's probably like quite different. Like, what do you do with the AI now? I'm sure like 2026 is going to be a big AI year in that sense.
Yeah, I think, the key thing is, and again, it's no different for agencies. You need AI to do the boring hard work for you. You need AI to bring everything together in a way that's frictionless, easy, and at speed. That all the stuff that we don't like doing but is necessary, AI can make better and do better and make our lives more enjoyable. So that's how we should be using AI. And then we should be focusing on that 10% that the time that we get from doing that is where we need to be focusing on making a real difference in our jobs and what we do. And that's generally creating brands and using our imagination and creating experiences and helping people and do better than we did before. And that's all we should be using AI for.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Then we are reaching like towards the end of this section, so there will be some time for questions
Yeah.
as well. But uh, now with all this change, and now I'm obviously asking this question from like a very selfish point, but how should agencies adapt to all this change that we see around us?
Yep. Well, look, I think we spoke about this before with the consolidation of agencies, right? So I think, as I said, we've level set the field now. The issue at the moment is most agencies don't stand for anything, right? So that's why it's very easy to someone to say, I'm just going to choose these guys, we're going to go for the lowest and the lowest bid, or we're going to use AI. So your agency needs to stand for something, and it needs to stand for something that's important to the client, but it also needs to stand for something that you enjoy doing and that you're good at. So the first thing is you need to stand for something. If you can stand for something and you're good at it, you've created value, you can charge money, and you won't get broke. And that's the problem with the holding companies. You know, S4 came out today and said their results, and they're performing so badly that their share price is going to be 50% less than when they started the year. WPP is 60% less. So they're not worried about how to be distinctive. They're worried about how not to go broke and how to make sure the shareholders don't fire them. So I think that's really important. I think the other area is kind of about just embracing this efficiency thing. I think, as an agency person as well, in my history, efficiency and creativity just doesn't go together. Like you're like, oh, efficiency, it just means timesheets. Like I don't want to do it. It's timesheets, it's estimates. But efficiency, as I said, means is really important because it allows us to do more. And the only way we're going to make that happen is to ensure that every single person in the agency is using AI, not just the AI director. Have you noticed that all the press releases at the moment are just, we've hired an
Yeah.
AI director? Every single person in the agency needs to know how to use AI. And the only problem, the person who should be worried is the junior account service person because I don't know what you're going to be doing in 12 months' time. So sorry to anyone on this. And look, the final one is just make works that matter. Make the work that matters. And that's, my whole career, it's the best agencies are the agencies that are focused on imagination, originality, doing really interesting creative stuff, and that creative stuff sells itself and gets the next client. So that's really, really all you can do.
Yeah. Now I remember actually I said it out first time out loud over 10 years ago when I was looking at all these agencies that you could change the name on the door of any of these and nobody would notice a thing. So it's a new phenomenon. So
Well, they have. They've just binned them. They just got rid of these names. It's like, forget it. Who are you? Like, doesn't matter. Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
So then just to wrap it up, what would be your wish for 2026? One wish or three wishes?
Look. I think this year has been a massive, since the election last year and everything is going, this year's been like a massive year of flux. Like it's kind of been crazy. So I kind of wish that one, there's not an AI bubble and it pops and bursts and the stock market goes and then us as marketers and consumers and inflation and everything else goes nuts. I don't want that to happen. I hope the orange cloud in the White House doesn't destroy us and the rest of the world. And I think that there's always every opportunity or chance that might happen. So I think, if next year we could just have stability in the world to focus on creativity to do good work, so if there was just enough stability, nothing was going to change, that we could all get on with our jobs and do really good, creative, imaginative stuff. That's all you could ask for.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Are we wrapping about on time?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, Luke and Antti. That was really, really inspiring. I just had actually, if somebody wants to ask a question, so you can put it into chat or then raise a hand, so they will open it. We will open the mics for you. But meanwhile, waiting for the questions, I think I wanted to ask one thing. You mentioned that your job is a lot of into focusing into customer experience and focus on work that matters. But we have quite many CMOs on the line now listening also this one. So what would you bring in top of those two things? What would you bring like a one thing for 26 that they should focus on in top of the
Apart from those things,
yeah.
I think it's about cohesion and a North Star from a brand point of view, that everybody in the business understands why the brand exists and why you and what you're doing. Because as I said before, there's so many touch points, particularly in the B2B space. There's so many touch points where if you don't believe in the narrative, you don't believe in the offer and the product doesn't live up to it,
Mm.
you don't succeed. You won't get, you will spend 6 months getting on an RFP. You'll do that whole RFP and you'll have one discussion and someone sort of says, we're just like the other guys, but cheaper. You're not going to sell your stuff.
Yeah.
So I really believe, and I've always believed, the power of brand, and the brand's got to be the North Star for everything that you do. And the
Mm.
challenge from a CMO is to get everybody sitting around the boardroom table to believe that. And to do that, you've got to be best friends with the CFO so they can see the vision as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good, good. Any questions there on the chat? Isabel, can you help me out if I don't see anybody? If not, then we can jump into the next one. So I would give a floor to my dear colleague Rashna from our Amsterdam hub. How about you? You're still on mute.
Strong,
It's
strong
amazing.
start.
5 years down after
You got
COVID,
it.
and I'm still on mute. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachna, creative partner at Superson in Amsterdam. And thank you, Auntie and Luke, for that session. Actually, it's a really, really good lead into where I want to take you. Really, really excited to introduce our next speaker. Rodd Chant is a restless creator. He's a writer, photographer, director, artist, bassist, and yeah, and also an executive creative director who has taken a really long way around the globe from Sydney to New York, Singapore, Bangkok, and he'll tell us if I'm missing something. Along the way, he has been building ideas for big brands and collecting some shiny metal along the way. But these days, he's obsessed with actually growing other people's talents as much as the work itself. He has been working closely with young professionals coming into the industry and also battle-scarred veterans who are trying to figure it all out. So, but I think what makes him even more interesting is actually his rock and roll origin story. Before advertising, he was a punk rock bass player, a roadie, a lighting guy, and a sound engineer. Sort of a true multi-hyphenate experimenting in life. And he can tell us more about that. But today he joins us as a leading industry voice to help us look ahead and sort of give us the other side and shake things up a little bit. So going back, welcome, Rodd. It's really, really great to have you here. But I'm going to
Thank
start
you.
the
It's great to
first,
be here.
yeah, first question going back to your origins. In
Mhm.
2026, is the creative professional a one-man band, or an orchestrator or a conductor of machines?
Yeah, we're in interesting times, but I agree with something Luke said in one part that this isn't the first upheaval that we've had in the business, and probably won't be the last. Um, one of the things that I see in the industry, and it comes from my music industry background, is I was in the music industry when it had total upheaval, and it totally flipped. Like, we went from having to book expensive recording studios to being able to record an album in a living room. When Cubase came out, which is a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and suddenly technology and digital, brought us new things like being able to share, like MySpace, for example, came out. And MySpace was very geared towards music at the time, and musicians were on there. And there were bands that were suddenly engaging directly with their audience, and they could sell their music to their audience directly. There was a famous incident, this band called Clap Hands, Say Yeah, and they decided, well, we don't need the record company. And they ended up selling 100,000 albums directly to their audience without a record company, and made more money than they could have made with their record company. I mean, so I saw the music industry get upended by technology, and it's happening in advertising. Advertising's having its music business moment, music industry moment at the moment, where technology is stepping in and making all these changes. But the other thing I bang on about it a lot on LinkedIn, my theory, and I've been interviewed about it and I've been on podcasts about it for many years now. It's not a new thing that I've talked about. I've been talking about for well before AI became a topic. Is I actually believe that the future agency model, and I've always believed this is the agency model. I did it in 2002 with the first agency I ever founded, is it should be based on a band, like a band model. Right, because I've never worked out why there's so many people in ad agencies. I've never been able to work it out. If you use, for example, look at U2 as an example. I don't care if you love or hate U2. That's not part of it. It doesn't matter. But yeah, there you go. And so U2 is a $1 billion creative business, right? And there's five people involved, realistically. There's four on stage and a manager. And if you look at an agency model, that's all you really need. You need some performers and someone to make sure you get business and get paid. All right. Now, I remember, and it's a true story, and don't know if I'll get in trouble, but when I landed at FCB, I used to be the ECD of publicist in Singapore. Then I got headhunted to become the EVP ECD of foot cone belting FCB in New York. Now, when I landed there, we had 1,500 staff in the New York office, right? 1,500. And I just left publicists in Singapore where I think we had 125, 130, I can't remember, but nowhere near that number. And I got there, Publicis Singapore was busier than FCB New York, work-wise, but we had 1,500 staff. And then in a management meeting, I was told that they wanted to get it to 2,000 people, right? And in this 5 floors of this New York office, right? I put my hand up and said, I know what 150 people do. Can someone tell me what 1,350 of the others do? And everyone thought I was joking, but I wasn't. Because why do you need all these people? I know billable head hours. I know. But that's all gone. That's all dead, right? You should have a business model for an agency. It does not have to be a cast of thousands. Like, again, if you go back to the band model, you have your performers. They're creating the work. You have the business person. Bang, you're getting paid. You're getting your business. You need a producer, you call them in. You need an engineer, you call them talking the band side. You want to go on tour, you hire the road crew, you hire the trucks, you hire the equipment. You know, you look at U2, they don't sit around an office all day. No band does. You've got Bono living on the Côte d'Azur. You've got the Edge in Malibu, and you got, I think, Larry in Ireland, and I don't know where. I don't know where they all. What's Adam? Sorry, and I don't know where Adam lives, but they share ideas of technology. We've got that ability. I got this idea for a song, I've got this riff, I got this. They're not cramming them into a room. And then they get together when they need it and they rent a studio and they get to work. Like, the overheads in an agency is ridiculous, and it always has been. So I'd like to bring my music industry background and thinking into advertising and going, let's just get rid of all the fluff. And that's, to a point, what AI will do, as Luke made a good point about, a lot of the grunt work will be done by AI. and you get a lot of the grunt work out of the way and just get rid of that. We need to focus on the ideas and getting back to that band model. Have the creators involved. Like you could have an agency that has a couple of creative people, a strategist, and a project manager / producer, right? And then you've got your business person who, makes sure you're getting business and getting paid, right? Bang. You can outsource your accounting, you can outsource this, you can outsource that, I mean, a billion-dollar band like U2 doesn't have an in-house CFO sitting in an office working for them. No, they hire an accounting firm. So I just think that the industry is about to go through, I think small is the new big. The holding companies are finished, as far as I'm concerned. They're over. They're just trying to find out where else to put the deck chairs on that Titanic they've got. Again, as Luke said, so many names are gone. I worked at Y&R in New York. That's gone. We were in Madison. We were the last agency on Madison Avenue at the time, at 285 Madison, which is a beautiful building. JWT's gone. DDB is going. Newsflash, it is going. It's not a rumor. And there's more coming. There are more coming. There are more deaths on the horizon for certain big names. I've heard some intel on the inside. The future is small. I mean, you look at some of the small, a lot of the big agencies got rid of the talent, and that was their biggest mistake, the big talent. And they thought, oh no, we only need young people that can do stuff, but they haven't got the depth of thinking and strategy and creative direction. And that was a gamble that the big eight, the holding companies made to save money. I've worked for the big holding companies. I've been with IPG, Omnicom. I've done it all, WPP, etc., and Publicis. I always joke that an agency that's not led by a creative person is just an accounting firm with a lot of people wearing black t-shirts, and we're all in black t-shirts almost for some. That's all an agency is without creative leadership. So if an agency, I had a friend who joined a big, I won't name them and I won't give away anything. He joined a big agency as the ECD. He was answering to the CFO. You must be kidding me, right? Answering to the CFO as the ECD. He quit within 6 months, and he was a very successful creative, and it was a very big agency. The big system got it all wrong. The smaller you get, clients will benefit. Like, I would rather, if I was a CMO, which I'm obviously not, but if I was a CMO, I would rather deal with the creatives, the creative person doing the work, the leadership, the thinkers, the strategist, the creative leader. But you know what we all know what happens in a pitch. They wheel out all us big guns, and they go, oh, great, wow. And then it's all handed off to 10 juniors, and on to the next and on to the next. Well, I'd rather, the future agency should be a small group of intensely experienced, passionate people who care about the brand and want to do the work. And then the client works directly with them, and you get it done. And the whole Wall Street days, the Wall Street movie Greed is Good. Well, that's what got them in trouble. Let's get bigger, let's get bigger, let's get bigger. But they're all collapsing because they got too big, and you don't need it. A good idea is a conversation. We've all sat down with someone and say, what about this? Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, let's go and make it. Why do we make it so difficult? So anyway, that's my little rock and roll rant. Sorry. But,
No, most welcome. I think you've got me at U2. So just leading on to what you just said, in terms of the setup and what it looks like in the future. But what about originality? In the world that we're living in, and the role of creatives as such, what does original or authentic even look like if all our data points are driven by informed for what's come before us? How do we get there? How do we craft the teams of the future to, just as Luke mentioned and you mentioned as well, to come up with that imagination and originality that drives us?
Okay, well, that's the other thing, the other mistake the agencies are making. They've gotten rid of the people that understand how to think and create and how to then mentor the next generation and teach them, right? How to become a lateral thinker, how to develop ideas. There's too much, there's too much copying now, and I'm not even talking about AI. It's just like, well, that was done, let's do that. That was done, let's do that. There's too much replication going on. There's too much, it's safe, it worked for them, let's do it here. It's never going to stand out. You've got to have people that you've got to encourage a generation to look deeper into art, into music, into design, into architecture. Don't look at ads. Like, never look at ads for inspiration. That's just ridiculous. Like, by the time an ad lands in an award annual, it's about 18 months old. It's old news, you know. Go and find your inspiration from a street artist. Go and find your inspiration from a new film, or not, and not a major film. Go and look at short films. Go and look at where creativity really lives. Go onto Vimeo and dig through some short films and like get inspired. I'm not saying copy, I'm saying get inspired. I just think that we're the more that, and this is a problem AI is going to deliver, that people are going to say, oh, it's easier, it's easier. I just, no, no, it's not, because you still got to have that originality, that moment of thought of like, you know, and the other thing that's really important is taste and nuance. And, you know, and that is something that a machine will never have until it becomes a sentient being. Now, if the machines become sentient beings, we're all screwed anyway. So, you know, it's like, you know, they're just going to turn off all the power and you know, we're all dead. So, because they don't need us, right? So, until the Terminators come, we've still got an advantage. You know, we understand taste. We understand, you know, we understand how to flip a word or two to make it something you want to read. You know, there's so much, you know, and I know this is a cliche to say at the moment, but there's so much, and I'm not anti-AI. Some people read stuff and go, oh, he's anti. I use AI every day, but I don't use it for my thinking. I don't use it for my writing. I use it for other things and other processes. But there's so much AI slop out there that it gets annoying, you know, and it's crowding the field. It's almost like, I've said this before. It's like the kid putting a finger painting on the fridge at home. It's like, oh, look, mum, look what I made. Oh, that's nice, dear. You know, and it's, you know, it's that kind of garbage that we keep seeing. It's like, oh, look what I made. You know, and it's like, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no idea there. There's no, and then you've got these other geniuses, and I'm not saying that to be complimentary, who say, look what I made in my lunch hour for zero budget and zero money. Okay, well then you're never going to make any money in this business because this is a business. So, and I commented on someone's post the other day about this. They said, all right, genius, like, so you go out and you're going to pitch yourself to a client and they're going to say, yeah, but you said you had zero budget and you made this amazing thing without any money. So why are you trying to charge me $50,000? Here's 500 bucks, knock yourself out. So that's a problem that a lot of people are going to face, you know, in all that. So originality comes from the human being that's inspired by ideas, inspired by art, inspired by design, inspired by architecture, inspired by food. You know, like I consider some of my closest friends are executive chefs back in New York and elsewhere. I consider them to be some of the most creative people on the planet. Absolutely creative. Because imagine you're handed five ingredients, now make it worthy of a Michelin star in a new way that no one else has done. Like, go. That's not easy to do. That's creative. That comes from within them. They're thinking, what could I do to enhance the flavor and the taste of this? And what could I do with this? And how could I twist this? And what could I add to this? And getting it all right. That kind of thing a machine can't do for you, you know. So think more like a chef as well. Apart from thinking like a rock and roller, think like a chef a little bit as well. Anyway, yeah, that's my thought on originality and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely love that, especially what you said about enhancing, using AI to enhance our taste, rather than replacing our craft. I read a really interesting quote the other day that, if creativity is about connecting a million dots, AI just happens to know where those million dots are, but it's the human mind that needs to identify and make those connections. Just to build on that thought, what you just said, how do you see the role of young AI natives in combination with experienced professionals, just like yourself? I saw, just to sort of qualify what I just said, I saw a very interesting piece of data the other day that the AI adoption curve, especially in the creative industry, has got this deep U. You've got people right at the beginning of their careers, the natives who are adapting it, and then there are the experienced minds who really know how to use it. But there is this dip in the middle where people are just rejecting it because they don't. It's very very nascent. It's like, let me just use ChatGPT to write my email. It's nothing beyond that. So how do you see the role of experience in actually using those dots?
Well, I think, the biggest mistake that's going to happen with a new generation of creatives is if anyone gets them to start on AI or something, right? Start thinking creatively first. Read Lateral Thinking by Edward de Bono. Always carry a notepad and a pen, right? Start with the basics, not the tools. The tool is the secondary. It's the basics is where you've got to start. You've got to have the foundation, right? You've got to learn to drive before you can drive. You got to learn to walk before you can run. And if you kick off with AI, we're going to have a generation who don't know how to think, right? They're going to just rely on the machine, and they're going to go, oh, well, it'll do it, it'll do it, it'll do it. I was on a call earlier with somebody talking about when I started out in this business. So I came fresh out of rock and roll into advertising. I didn't know what the hell. I'd never heard of advertising before. This is a true story. I was 25, never watched ads. They may have popped up on television, but I got up and got bored and got a drink or whatever and went to the bathroom like normal people do. I wasn't interested in advertising and just ignored it. And then suddenly I got swept into this, taken under the wings of some mentors and all that and changed my entire life. But I was taken into this rebel ad school that was done, right, by these ECDs in Sydney. And they have a thing called award school in Australia.
Yeah.
I was not accepted into it, and believe it or not, and I ended up teaching at it later, but that was a funny moment. But some leaders of award school saw my entry and a bunch of other entries and said they were rejecting the wrong people. So they started a rebel school, and a different name, different process, yada, yada, yada. Did that, and then, the rest is history. But the thing that they did that was so, and I was telling someone earlier, it was 12 weeks, just like award school. But for the first 6 weeks, you weren't allowed to write an ad. Right? No ads. It was all creative thinking, lateral thinking, ideation, getting your brain to think in a different way, training it to think, training it to write differently, and that was all, that's what they did for 6 weeks. And I was sitting there, I thought we were supposed to be doing ads, but no, you're going to do this, you're going to think like this, you're going to shape your brain. They shaped our minds. And they had 40 people in that group, got it down to 10, a masterclass of 10. Those 10 people went on to have careers around the world, right? And that was never replicated by any other course, right? And and I still use everything I was taught then, and I'm still close to those mentors. And I thank them every day for what they did. But taking that into today is make sure anyone starting out is not just jumping on the tools, right? And going AI first and then think first, then AI. The thing that I find really funny, and I wrote a post about this, a comment about this the other. Anyone who follows me knows I say what the hell is on my mind at any given time, and I don't really even think about it before I write it. I have a coffee and go bang, and then if I upset people, that happens. But there's all these people changing their titles that AI this and AI that and AI this, or it's an AI agency. And so I don't remember anyone being a Photoshop creative director or a Photoshop art director, or
I
or
remember
we're a
that.
Photoshop agency, or we're,
Yeah.
that's how silly it is, right? That's how dumb it is. It's like, or a guitarist saying, I'm a Gibson guitarist. No, you're a guitarist. You happen to play a Gibson, there's too many people bandwagoning at the moment, all right? And bandwagons are dangerous because I remember, and I think all of us have been around long enough. I was in when everything went digital. Oh, we're a digital agency. We need digital copywriters. We need, a digital copywriter. Like, I don't remember seeing anyone writing on a typewriter at the time. It's like everyone had a laptop. Like writing is writing. Art direction is art direction. Ideas are ideas. And then now look, oh, where are all the digital agents? Oh, guess what? It all got brought back in. So I just think there's at the moment too much bandwagoning, jumping on stuff, and people trying to predict the future, right? No one can predict the future at all, right? It's like bring it back to ideas, creativity, taste, originality, craft. That's the future. The tools are secondary, always will be. Anyway,
I
chant
can
rant
talk
over.
about this for hours, but I love the bit about digital art directors and copywriters or AI art directors and copywriters. You can't download them, they have to be real.
It's silly.
Right. I mean, just to sort of not go down the creative rabbit hole as exciting as this might be. Just a last thing, we have a lot of people from the marketing side. What would you what advice would you give somebody like Luke right now, as he's planning his 2026, in terms of how do we stay weird and wonderful and crazy
Yeah.
and unique and retain our soul as brands?
Okay. So first thing is find partners you can trust who are truly creative. right? And they're not going to be in a big agency. Um, Find the ones that are doing unique work that actually stands out, and you can tell that they love what they're doing. They're just not there for the coin. They're there for the work and the coin because it's a business. Um, but building that trust, I mean, here's the biggest mistake that most agencies made, and I think Luke may have touched on it a little bit at the moment. But I always say this to anyone who starts an agency, and I actually coach and advise like creatives who want to launch their own micro agency. If you have five agencies that can all deliver the same thing with the same levels of experience, they've won the same amount of awards, they've got the same body of work that they can show off, and the same da 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 da. Who does the client generally pick? They pick the cheapest, right? That's what they're always going to do because they can all do it. Unless there's a previous relationship involved, they'll pick the cheapest. It's like, and especially if the economy gets bad, where somebody walks in the supermarket and there's five brands of baked beans on the shelf and they've only got a few bucks in their pocket, they pick the house brand, the private label baked beans, generally, unless they're a baked bean sort of aficionados or whatever. But
Yeah.
but then so if everybody's doing the same thing and everyone can deliver the same thing, why even talk to those people? Go to the ones that are doing different. Like there's also just a little aside, I just read one of my favorite magazines in the world, originally came out of Australia. It's called Monster Children. And Monster Children's also an agency now as well, a production company as well. They shelved their magazine recently, right? I mean, not recently, a while back. They just announced it's coming back because there's a whole demographic, generally Gen Z, and there's a whole bunch of subcultures who are over digital, over social. They're not interested in AI. And they all want something tactile. And they've said, look, people are using Spotify, but they're buying vinyl records, right? Because they still want that experience, but they'll listen on Spotify, but they want the vinyl. I think go with the agency. If every agency is doing this, well, why not work with the agency that's actually working with cameras and people like look at, I get accused of talking about them too much, but just look at an agency like Uncommon, who I consider one of the best creative shops in the world at the moment. They did a documentary about Nick Cave, a film about Nick Cave in their early days. They do editorial design, they'll do product design, they'll do stunts and all that. They're not your average agency. So don't go for average. Don't go for the ones that got the portfolio and the body of normal work. Go for the ones that are interesting, exciting, and willing to push the boundaries of the brief. That's my advice. That's my long-winded advice. Sorry. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much, Rodd. That was fascinating discussion. I'm going to open the floor for questions in the last 5 minutes, and Sampa, over to you for that.
Thank you. Very, very inspiring. I don't know if I should be a chef or a band player now in the future. I'll try to be both. But hey, we have a question for Georgios. It is clear that we see the emergence of a new type of an agency, smaller, smarter, more agile, but are we also seeing the emergence of a new kind of a work? One that doesn't feel like traditional advertising, but it's still a brand communication. So using different channels as media than the traditional ones. What do you think?
Yeah.
Luke can also
Yeah,
chip in if you want.
I also think, that, and this will upset a lot of people, I think, in certain areas, but I would rather work with an agency that's one at the real can than the other can. Like, show me an agency that's one for a short film at the real can, right? And they're more interesting to me automatically. It's like, because that means you understand storytelling and you're thinking outside this little bubble that's advertising. Think about also product development. Agencies should be thinking about creating their own brands and their own product, their own IP. Like, I remember I got in a debate with an ECD who said no agency has ever created a successful brand in-house, right? To which I said, I won't swear. I said BS, right? And I said, has anyone heard of Acne Studio, the fashion label that's in every high street around the world and it's an agency.
Yeah.
Acne is an agency. And
Yeah.
it was founded by the creative director started making jeans for himself and he put the agency logo on there. It's a massive fashion brand that came out of an ad agency. It can be done. It can be done. Think
One of
different.
my favorite topic came out here from Linda. How do you foresee the agency pitch process should change in order to reach the best results for both parties? Love it.
Okay, pictures are, geez, I'm doing everything not to swear. Pictures are BS, all right? Okay, pitches are the most
Well, how do you
BS.
choose? You still need to choose.
Okay, this is what you do. You use a little bit of due diligence, do a little bit of research, not hard. You've obviously got peers and people you know in the industry that can tell you who they've worked with, look at who's done the good work, right? And then you pick three, and then you go and have lunch with them individually. Have three different lunches, right? Dinners, knock yourself out, I don't care. Sit down. Who did you like spending the most time with? Because you know they can all do the work and they've all done amazing work, they've all done great work. But who did you enjoy and who would you like to have lunch with again? All right? Because that's what it's about. It's about relationships. If you hated having lunch with any of them, then you're screwed.
Hmm.
So that's how easy it should be because they can all do the work. Just
Yeah.
see who do you want to hang out with. That's how the pitch process should be.
I love it. So first, small due diligence, and then kind of the chemistry that you
Yeah,
feel.
the chemistry thing, is basically, I mean, in the States, I don't know if it happens, I worked in Singapore 3 times, but I never saw it happen there. But in the States, you have chemistry sessions after, as part of the pitch process. But
Yeah.
it's about the I was part of I won't say who, but we were to the final moment.
Yeah.
And the chemistry session, the CMO hated our CEO, and it was over. It's finished.
Yeah.
Even though our work was that they said was the best.
Yeah. You know what, Rodd? I think this is a great time to finish it up, and I start expecting lunch invitations from our clients. So I think that would be a great way to start pitching in the future. But hey, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Antti. Thank you, Rashna. Thank you, Rodd, and thank you all for participants. Great to have you, and we will give you a short summary in our Supercharger newsletter for very soon. So have a good rest of the year, and let's do some magic stuff.
Thank you. It was great. It was fun. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Have a great
everyone.
2026.
Bye bye.